Good morning, Atlanta. I am so sorry that I cannot be there with you all today. I was really looking forward to it. But I wanted to give a big thanks to the organizers and to Frank and the ICF team for inviting me to speak on this great panel. I hope to I'll meet you all in person one day soon and talk more about all of these strategies that we're all putting together. My name is Jen Weiss. I'm a senior advisor for climate change policy here at the North Carolina Department of Transportation. And I wanted to share with you today a little bit about what we're doing here in North Carolina for clean transportation and specifically around vehicle miles traveled. So I'm going to share a little bit about the work that we've been doing up here. So many of you know that our Governor Cooper has been signing executive orders over the years, started back in 2018 with a commitment to address climate change and a transition to clean energy. And so his goals back then were to reduce economy-wide emissions by 40% below 2005 levels by 2025. And he set the very first zero emission vehicle goal of increasing the number of zero emission vehicles to 80,000 by 2025 throughout our state. Fast forward to 2022, and in January, he signed another executive order, 246, which built off of Executive Order 80 and increased our goals. We were doing so well, he increased them. So he increased the economy-wide emissions goal to 50% below 2005 levels by 2030 and increased the number of zero-emission vehicles to 1.25 million by 2030. And to put that number in perspective, we're at about 48,000 zero-emission vehicles right now. So there's a lot of work that we're doing behind the scenes to try to get to that goal. And then the third goal that he set was a new one to increase the sale of zero emission vehicles so that 50% of in-state sales are zero emission by 2030. And that's really similar to a lot of the goals we're seeing coming out of the Biden administration, as well as many auto manufacturers across the country are also looking at those goals. And so we're feeling pretty good about those goals. The third thing that he did was to introduce or ask the Department of Transportation to put together a clean transportation plan, which is bringing together stakeholders from across the state and also nationally to talk about all the different options and challenges and opportunities that we have in the state to transition over to clean transportation. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about what we've been doing here since about the April-May timeframe to try to really dig into different topic areas to come up with these strategies, near-term strategies that are going to help us to decarbonize the transportation sector. And so you can see here, very busy slide, but the 5 different work groups that have been meeting monthly for about 6 months, from May through October, where we've been diving into different solutions and areas that we can work together on to reduce emissions. And so you can see there's a few that are specific to zero emission vehicles. We've got light duty, which are your passenger cars and trucks. We have medium and heavy duty, your larger trucks, your delivery vans. And then we have fleets. So this is kind of a combination of both, right? Looking at the different fleets, either whether they're public, private, school buses. So how can we transition these large groups of vehicles over to zero emission vehicles? The fourth is vehicle miles traveled, which I know is very relevant to this group, looking at how we get people out of their vehicles to begin with. And then the fifth is to look at the infrastructure that will be needed to build around all of this. How do we make this happen? How do we build the infrastructure in order to get there? So as I said, all 5 of these groups are working together, and we're going to be pulling strategies from these groups and weave them into our overarching clean transportation plan, which is due to the governor in April of next year, 2023. So it seems to be sneaking up on us. I could talk all day about each of these different work groups, but I know the focus of our forum here is to talk about the vehicle miles traveled and the travel demand management strategies. So I wanted to talk a bit more about what North Carolina has been doing in that specific topic area. Back in 2021, we had a vehicle mile traveled reduction study performed by Stantec to really look at all of the different strategies that were available throughout the country and kind of come up with which ones would be specific to North Carolina, which types of things should we be looking at here in our state. And you can see they identified 38 different TDM strategies in 8 different categories. And I'm not going to go through all these, but I think these are very similar to what all of you are looking at as well, right? What are the different worksite and workplace programs that we can be looking at? How do we look at this regionally? How do we develop regional plans for how we get people out of vehicles? What types of telecommunication, broadband, and other types of things might be necessary, or what are the opportunities there? How do we use land use a little bit differently? This is a huge topic of conversation here in North Carolina, as I'm sure it is with all of you. What are the different policies or regulatory levers that we can be pulling in order to make this happen? What are the different pricing things? Maybe working with utilities to come up with different pricing scenarios for things that we can be doing differently. Maybe there's some application-based tools that we can be using to improve and increase awareness of the different VMT reduction strategies. And then what type of support is needed behind it. So a lot of things are in this study. I will send you all the link and so you can dig into it, but just a lot of things that we want to be considering. And as that study came out, one of the things that we wanted to make sure we did was not just to put a study out there, which was sitting on a shelf, but we wanted to make it actionable. And so this toolkit was developed. And I know this is a busy slide, but if you go to our website, there's an actual toolkit on our website that you can walk through. And what it does is take you through all 38 of those different travel demand strategies. You can hone in on the one that you're most interested in, and you can look for a variety of things. You can look for resources, you can look for best practices, you can look for funding opportunities around that. And so we really feel like this is a tool that can be used by our regional planning organizations, our MPOs, our RPOs, our clean cities coalitions, local governments, transit agencies, environmental justice communities. I think there's a whole lot of different people that can use this tool to best meet their own local needs. And so that was why the tool was developed. And we've been working hard to get that tool out in front of people to be used. The thing that I wanted to kind of wrap up with here was a little bit of a discussion around what was coming out of the vehicle miles work group that I mentioned for the clean transportation plan. It has been meeting for about 6 months. We've had about 30 to 40 people that have been actively engaged with it, and there are Ooh, many, many strategies that are coming out. And so this is I just picked a couple that I thought were most interesting. What we'll be doing is finding the ones that are the highest priority that will have the biggest impact for the state. And we'll be putting those into our final clean transportation plan that will be given to the governor in April next year. And so here are just a couple of things that have been coming up. How do you promote awareness of all these different TDM strategies through effective community engagement? How do you get out into the communities and talk about them and get people to change behaviors? How do you find those funding streams and evaluate them to help promote the VMT reduction strategies and equitable outcomes? How do you expand the infrastructure for emerging mobility, rail, public transit, in order to get people out of their vehicles and into these other modes of transportation? And then finally, how do you promote these different TDM strategies and commuter benefit programs across the state? We have something called Commute Friendly here in North Carolina where we work with employers, but what other types of avenues and venues can we use in order to really just get the awareness out there and get people thinking about these strategies? I'm going to end there. I really wish I were there to answer questions and to talk, but I did want to leave you with two links to our website. One is about our clean transportation plan in general, and then the second one is about our vehicle miles traveled study, as well as the toolkit. You can find both of them there. My contact information is there. Please feel free to reach out and talk about any of these or anything else that we're working on in North Carolina, including the clean transportation plan. I really am excited about all of the opportunities that are ahead of us, and I look forward to working with all of you to make it happen. Thank you and have a great rest of the forum.